in the world of professional wrestling is not that far from the role of how you are in the world. There's guys that you perceive leaders. There's guys that you can perceive mid carders. Some that work together as a group, and some work well as somebody that's a bit more behind the scenes or a bit more under the rest. And I'm not saying that to demean anything. At the end of the day, it's entertainment. There's a upper card, a lower card, and a mid card. And sometimes there's rules, just like in sports. You average 35 points from high school, and now you're averaging 6.8, but you can always grab more offensive rebounds than the rest. There's a rule for that. Ricochet always has the perception of being one of the best high flyers the time I was watching more independent pro wrestling around the early to mid 2010s. Because I was always a WWE fan. And I've seen Ricochet before, back when he was masked up, doing high risk maneuvers at Lucha Underground, if y'all remember Lucha Underground. And he was Prince Puma. Now he made himself an illustrious mid-carder after wrestling those matches with Will Ospreay back in I think it was Best of the Super Juniors, and since then he's been known as that illustrious uber athletic high flyer coming over to NXT. Since then, he became a good enough tag team wrestler to upper mid carder that can always contend, but always had these hiccups involving his promo style, his charisma, his attention to actually grab over fans, even though he will get always the best clips when it comes to high risk maneuvers, and he'll take the best bumps. It was the equivalent of Dolph Ziggler at the time, but there was always more into Dolph Ziggler. He was always a competent talker. He elevated to at least win somewhat of world championships to being a heavyweight champion before, cashing in, always being in high-profile segments. He was headlining pay-per-views. Ziggler has headlined pay-per-views before. Back in 2012, back when he feuded with John Cena for the Money in the Bank briefcase. Why John Cena didn't retrieve it over the year he wasn't world champion, but he was headlining more than CM Punk was, because he wasn't really the main guy still. That's not John Cena's fault why he sells more than CM Punk does, globally. And yet, coming over to what's going on in WWE, Ricochet thinks that hindered his legacy. And I want you to know, there is no legacy having most of your life being a professional wrestler. There's a nice word to say it, and thankfully it doesn't begin with an N. It's next to it. It's called being a mark. Ricochet's a mark. Now, perceiving his comments, because currently he's an AEW superstar, and always you get pops when you come given the perceived notion that talking about your former player that gave you generational wealth, made you meet your wife out of Samantha Evans, got yourself into global recognition, headlining, showcase. Bro wrestled Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns for world titles, being in Money in the Bank briefcase matches, and won the United States and Intercontinental Championship. And everybody gets buried when winning the Speed title. You were a good enough mid-carder. You weren't even a headliner since like 2014. You were in 2014, you were in Best of the Super Juniors. Till then, you're just a basic bitch high flyer still that can just do decent bumps, doing the thing. You weren't even a star. You're not even a star in AEW, man. You just won their current out of 15 mid card titles, and they already had like 2 that Okada just separated again. It's a shame. I don't even mind Ricochet. He's fun to watch over certain occasions, but at the time you're saying that your legacy gets ruined, if I'm making 6 figures and I'm able to pay for my insurance, my cars, my house, and pay for if I have kids, and a wedding ring for my wife, I think I'm okay doing segments with R-Truth where I'm getting over and I'm selling merchandise and I'm selling myself over as a brand to probably get myself in movies. I'll still make the Hall of Fame too. I don't know why Ricochet put something happens to Balor, Nakamura, Apollo Crews, WWE kills their legacies and the love of the sport. It's what they do best. I feel this way. Many others do as well. That company kills the love and it ends up being in the shell of yourself. He's trying to say that these superstars like Apollo Crews, Balor in Japan, guys that were in Japan or over in the Indies that were not headlining beforehand, and because they get lesser roles than how they were in previous standpoints, that means that their careers are diminished. And I will agree that some of these wrestlers had underwhelming careers for what the expectations they had from their past employment, like how it was for Balor, but he kind of had a renaissance over his career when he was with the Judgment Day, winning the tag titles with JD McDonough. Balor has accomplished a lot. You just the pigment of you having an underwhelming career is that you weren't the main guy and you weren't the world champion. And if you're thinking that type of mentality in a career-based system, you're a mark. You're a mark. Kevin Nash is a former world champion, and he never gloats about that. Ever. I think he values paying his mortgage and paying for drinks than he does ever focusing on being a former world champion over Bret Hart. And you don't want to live the rest of your life being Bret Hart. As illustrious as Bret Hart is, he is a mark for himself. Even though he's outstanding as a wrestler in his day, he still talks about how Goldberg ruins his life, and then he belittles world-renowned workers like Sheamus on how to throw a punch when Sheamus has had a longer, illustrious career than him as a foreigner. It's silly. It's truly silly. They haven't, for a while, even I was IC and United States champion, and it meant nothing. I'd argue El Generico has a better legacy than Sami Zayn. There's no shot. We're comparing Sami Zayn's career to his time as El Generico. He was a random screen cameo on TNA Wrestling, and his biggest feud till then was Kevin Steen. I think Sami Zayn better off remembering himself being an honorary Uso, headlining WrestleMania, facing off against the Usos for the World Tag Team Championships. He's in segments with Johnny Knoxville. He's in segments with John Cena. His debut was against John Cena, by the way, for the U.S. Open Challenge. What in the hell is Ricochet talking about? These are the begrudging things that will make you a loser. This is peak in high school mentality Ricochet's on, and I'm not with it, bro. Losing your love of the pro wrestling because you weren't that important is a sad life to have. And then you're pointing the blame over to the booking, Ricochet. You just take good bumps for the guys that are heavier than you, and most of the time you were in spots where you were having matches with like AJ Styles. You're gonna blame on AJ Styles' legacy back on TNA, and then he was in WWE for over a decade. And yes, AJ Styles had an underwhelming last few years with the company after Gunther retired him. He had probably one of the best debut years you'll ever see, next to Kurt Angle back in 99 to 2000. And you tell me that's an underwhelming career? Ricochet, there's been guys that's had worse careers than you. There was a time when they thought Cain Velasquez would be the next Brock Lesnar. We could look over guys like Velveteen Dream that had his own problems. Legally, that was why he didn't live up to expectation. And yet you're complaining because you weren't prominent of a star as Matt Riddle was. You're not even Matt Riddle equivalent of fumbled. I would just be glad that I wrestled for 15 plus years without much of a major injury that kept me off the shelf for more than 5 months. Ricochet, if you got yourself over with a personality, with a promo style that doesn't look like you're crying to get your words out, and you weren't taking bumps and you weren't always trying to oversell for high spots, there'd be a category. Even AJ Styles, he was a perennial X Division guy before he actually learned how to work matches, and he just was considered one of the best wrestlers in the world. Same thing for Kenny Omega. So just establishing that, Ricochet, off just these tweets alone, I want you to know, personally, you need to learn how to shut the fuck up and just try to work the crowd. You don't need to get heat outside of the television show that nobody's going to actually turn the channel to hear that Ricochet is on. That should be your major concern. You need to try to promote AEW to be the must-see thing, promoting yourself as a brand and promoting the brand that represents you, that pays for your bills. Just like how WWE was for over a decade of your underwhelming career. Because you're a fun fact when it comes to other pro wrestlers that are more important than you. Come on, you weren't even the best high flyer, bro. I'd pick Jack Evans over you. And I see that guy in Elevation. I'm sorry, Ring of Honor. It's the same show. That's it for me over in the DST show. Is Ricochet a mark? We're going to keep it a buck with Ricochet with these depictions over underwhelming careers. Because at the end of the day, you got to say that F word in pro wrestling that not a lot of people have to use. Because at the end of the day, if you're saying you're pulling a Jimmy Butler and it took away your love of the wrestling business, that you weren't considerably booked, you didn't have dog food drenched in you. You just took a good RKO where your neck was bent 50 degrees. It's okay just being a light-skinned Shelton Benjamin for a decade, Ricochet. And the more you understand that, the more and actually change who you are as a wrestler, the more you actually be put in a perennial thing, like how Andrade was when he was over in WWE, and now he's over headlining Dynamites, while your tweets are still making you have these undercard matches with guys that look more important than you. And nobody cares that you're an anime nerd. That's not a character. That's it for me over in the DC show. Like, comment, and share. Subscribe to the channel. And I'm going to take my Tylenol. I'm stressing. I don't want to lose my hair like Ricochet does. Because we know he's always a pain in the butt. He knows about that. Leaks are not going to be in the description below. I'm not showing that. I'm not ruining my channel.